Good evening, VV Nation. My name is Ryan. Welcome to the channel. Thursdays, we talk semiconductors, and there's no better stock to talk about this evening than a highly anticipated earnings report coming out next week. That's right, Lisa Su will be conducting AMD's earnings call after the bell next Tuesday. And I'm pretty excited, especially hearing some of the big names report already. We're going to cover that in tonight's presentation. We're going to dive into the VectorVest 7 system, analyze AMD both from a technical and forecasted data perspective. We will be discussing exactly what's driving this growth for AMD's future. Now, if you're interested in this, let's get started. We're going to recap on three big semiconductors that recently just reported, the first being ASML. You can see the earnings per share beat by 8.6%, revenue beat by 4.1%. Now, if I scroll up, you see the revenue itself year over year increased 11%, while net income just shy of 10% to the upside. And Taiwan Semiconductor reported last week, also beating EPS by just over 8% and revenue ever so slightly at 1.26%. Now, as we dive in a little bit further, the revenue year over year up 40%, giving a lot of momentum for semiconductor manufacturing. And last night, Lam Research reported, you can see it's up this morning, just shy of 4%. Look, beating on earnings per share and revenue. Now, this is a misprint here that actually came in at 0.86, but still beating EPS estimates. Now, here we've got AMD. I'm going to break it down. The first thing I'm going to show you is the earnings report from a year ago. This is September 2023. Look at the revenue. Came in at $5.8 billion. As I scroll down, we can see the expected revenue right now is at $6.71 billion. That's a 15% increase year over year, and that will be the biggest year over year increase in revenue in the last 4 quarters reported. As well, look at the expectations for the EPS here, 92 cents. If I scroll down, we can see the last quarter being at 69 cents. And if we go to a year ago, September 2023, 70 cents. So the EPS would be the highest year over year. Along with that, revenue expectations, 15% increase. That is something to get investors excited. All right, let's talk about the big picture when it comes to AMD. This is an article referring to the most recent earnings. As you can see, the growth data center. That's what it's about here. If we take a look in particular, the data center revenue soared $2.8 billion. 115% increase compared to the previous year. Now, on top of that, cloud and enterprise adoption propels growth. Now, before AMD was mostly known for its CPUs, you can see the EPIC CPUs processes here mentioned. Even though the CPUs are increasing the growth here, you can see with the cloud computing, 34%. For AMD to really propel its market cap to new levels, it's all about one thing, and that's going to be catching up with NVIDIA when it comes to AI and machine learning. Now, as far as their gaming sector, I mean, that's how AMD really came to fame. As I scroll down, we can take a look here. We see AMD's gaming segment experienced a significant downturn. 59% year over year decline to just $648 million. That's why I'm saying that AMD really needs to focus on the data center growth rather than the personal computer segment of this industry. Now, for a quick history lesson, the AI chip race really kicked off 2022, 2023. AMD was not ready when it came to, competing with NVIDIA's GPUs. So they had to use what they had at the time because of the chip shortage, and they ended up using the MI300 here. This is a GPU in the Radeon Instinct series. However, big news announced earlier this month. You can see AMD launched new artificial intelligence chips at an event several weeks ago, introducing to investors the Instinct MI325X to directly compete with NVIDIA's upcoming Blackwell chips. All right, we're in the VectorVest 7 software, so let's break down AMD. You can see right now, down day, about 0.25% here, currently trading at $152. But look at the valuation. I've said this before, anytime one of these big tech names becomes undervalued compared to the VectorVest metrics, opportunities typically present themselves. You see the company slightly undervalued right now. We value AMD at $155. Now, as far as its fundamentals, RV and RS, if you're not familiar with these, RV looks at long-term price appreciation compared to an alternative investment in a AAA corporate bond. That being said, it's likely to outperform that bond with a favorable rating above 1, currently sitting at 1.53. As far as the safety, we have relative safety here, 1.43. This is a great indicator going into earnings because essentially it looks at the consistency and the predictability of the company's financial. It does look at other things like debt to equity ratio and the company's longevity. Now, the RT is our technical indicator looking at the short-term price trend of any stock. These indicators are on a 0 to 2 scale, RT above 1 right now, favorable ratings. Therefore, we know it's in an uptrend, and the momentum behind that trend right now, pretty weak. Now, if we take a look at the overall score, value, safety, and timing, otherwise known as VST, coming in very favorable, 1.33. The stock currently has a hold recommendation. Now, as far as the forecasted data, if we take a look at the sales growth rate, sitting at 9%. If we look at the growth rate in earnings, whopping 29%. Now, the first way we're going to break down AMD, pretty much from a fundamental standpoint, the green shaded area here, this is our valuation. We can see the VectorVest value on the rise over the last 6 months. The stock finally becoming undervalued over the last couple trading sessions. On top of that, if we look at the forecasted data, the growth rate in earnings on the rise over the last 6 months, ending at 29%. Sales growth rate did take a dip, however, recovered, finishing at 9%. Earnings per share, EPS, this is forecasted data, the leading 12-month forecasted earnings per share. You can see nice steady rise, lower left to upper right, stair-step fashion. Therefore, with earnings being the fuel to drive stock price even higher, I see great potential with AMD in the future. All right, here's AMD from more of a technical perspective. Just starting off with the moving averages, all in a bearish manner right now. The 3, 8, and 20-day EMA showing the bearish trend occurring. Now, we do see consolidation here over the last few months with the upper trend line and lower trend line forming the triangle formation pattern that we're seeing here. And currently, price action testing this lower trend line once again. But as long as price action stays within this consolidation zone, being a buyer at the trend level with a pretty tight stop below is not a bad way to play it. Now, my big concern that I'm seeing here, if we take a look, I see one shoulder, a head, and another shoulder here. And I just put up the neckline around $155. You can see price action just broke that and having some trouble trying to get back above this neckline around $155. So I just want to put these technical perspectives out there right now. The chart pattern is more on the bearish side of things. However, with the optimism of earnings around the corner and nvidia following suit shortly after, there's a lot of enthusiasm in the space still. And with AMD on the pullback, sitting right at that trend line, as long as you're disciplined with a tight stop, the enthusiasm with earnings next week, I see a big potential in a trade setup with money to be made. Now, if you enjoyed tonight's presentation, if you found this information informative, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week.